Welcome back to part 2 of Pistol 101A, Friendly Intro to Firearms. My name is Tom Nguyen, founder and lead instructor at LA Progressive Shooters. And in part 2, I'm going to help demystify how a pistol operates. I'll show you the basic parts of a pistol inside and out, and once I put a pistol back together, I will show you inefficient and efficient ways to load and unload the firearm. Because we have all different abilities in terms of strength, I also show different types of accessories to make loading and unloading pistols a lot easier. And finally, I'll make sure you understand how to never make one of the most common and most dangerous mistakes when unloading these firearms. All right, folks, we're here to demystify what semi-automatic pistols are for you. People are afraid of things they do not understand. So how are you gonna demystify what these are for you? We are going to be disassembling a pistol into its basic parts. And before I start, I want to preface this by letting you know that the guns you see in these videos have been cleared. That means that they have been checked by every single person, myself, and not just myself, every person on set has verified with their own eyes that these guns are unloaded. There is no live ammo in this classroom. If you're following along at home with your own firearms, you're doing so at your own risk. So make sure that if you're following along with your own firearms, you also visually verify your guns are unloaded, and there should be no ammo anywhere in that room of yours. The ammo should be locked separate before you handle any guns, okay? The safety rules always apply, whether the guns are loaded or unloaded, all right? Safety first, folks. All right, so we use Glock pistols in our class. This is the pistol on the right. Even folks who come to our classes who are scared of guns, never touched a gun before in their lives, knows the name Glock. Glock is like the Tupperware brand, right, of the gun world, okay? Why did Glock become so ubiquitous both in the gun world and outside the gun world? Why did Glock become so ingrained in our pop culture, right, in our movies and our hip hop lyrics? Well, here's the reason. Glock was the first brand, they're from Austria, and in the late 80s, early 90s, they came out with the latest innovation in pistol technology. We call that innovation striker-fired pistol, okay? And the best way to explain to you what a striker-fired pistol is to have it side-by-side comparison to the more traditional pistol that a lot of people may have been, you've seen them in the movies before, right? Unlike the more traditional pistols that you might have seen in the movies, right? If I pick up this more traditional pistol, okay, this is a 1911, model 1911. It's called the 1911 because it came out in 1911. That's how old the design is, right? Very traditional, right? Unlike the more the traditional pistol, right? Traditional pistols have what? They have a hammer that gets cocked, okay? They have a manual safety that you flick on manually and off, okay? Glock, in their wisdom, wanted to simplify the design of pistols to make them more robust, more reliable, okay? What did they do? They got rid of the hammer. Okay, they totally simplified it, we'll get rid of the hammer. That's why these are called striker-fired pistols and not hammer-fired pistols. That's one basic difference. Glock also said, you know what, we don't need the manual safety. Yeah, we'll get rid of the manual safety. And a lot of people at first mention are thinking, wait, are Glocks less safe because they don't have manual safety? No, not at all, okay? Instead of a manual safety, folks, okay, Glock has an internal drop safety, okay? They just said, we don't need manual safeties. We're gonna have internal safety. We'll have a passive trigger safety that folks don't really need to worry about as much, right? And so I'll explain the safeties in more detail. But basically, no manual safeties on this gun. There's no hammer, right? And then the next innovation is this, okay? If you watched my video on the 4 rules of firearm safety, the third rule is what? Always keep your finger off the trigger until ready to shoot. But specifically, keep your finger on the frame. Well, what's the frame? I'm gonna show you, right? I'm gonna start to disassemble this Glock for you, okay? So to disassemble Glock, very similar, whether it's traditional or striker fire, right? On a Glock, you have to squeeze the trigger first before you can disassemble it. Obviously, that could be kind of risky. You make sure that the gun is clearly unloaded, visually check that the chamber is empty. You point it in the direction of least consequence, right? I have a pretty big wall over here. There's no one in that direction, so I'm gonna go squeeze my trigger. That's the first step to disassembling the Glock, right? And then I'm gonna pull the slide like so. there's a takedown lever, okay? You don't really need to know this step because every gun is gonna have a different method of disassembling. But basically, whatever it takes to disassemble this pistol, the first thing you do is you're gonna take the slide, this is called the slide, off the frame, and this is your frame, okay? The next innovation Glock did was, unlike the more traditional pistol, look, it's all steel. It looks super sexy, right? It's heavy, okay? Glock was the first to mass produce a pistol where the frame, super light, it's made out of polymer, okay? That was also an innovation, okay? What is the advantage of making this frame out of polymer? Because the gun overall is lighter, it's gonna be more accessible to more people of different abilities, right? You know, a lot of people cannot hold a big, weighty pistol. They get tired, okay? With this gun, because it's lighter, yeah, more nimble, easier to handle for people of all different sizes, okay? That's a bonus, okay? How about the manufacturing cost? Making this out of polymer versus making this out of steel. This is obviously cheaper to mass produce. So what Glock did was, starting in the late 80s, early 90s, they came out with a quality firearm that was literally almost half the cost to make, okay? You can get a brand new Glock for about $500, okay? This vintage, you know, firearm cost me $1,100, $1,200, right? That's more than double the cost, right? You're gonna get a all steel hammer-fired gun, more traditional, right? It's gonna cost you at least $700, $800 and all the way past $1,000. So you see the price factor is huge, okay? The easiest way I can explain it to you, I love using the car analogy, okay? Glocks are the Honda Civics of the gun world, okay? Honda Civics, affordable, reliable, dependable, low maintenance. You can abuse them, they'll still run, okay? They're very practical, very utilitarian. They're not the sexiest, but they'll get the job done, okay? So what are these more traditional pistols like with the car analogy? This is like your vintage Corvette, your Camaro, super sexy, but how much more expensive are they, like we talked about, right? And because it's metal on metal, if you don't keep these well-maintained, well-lubricated with oil, they might jam on you, okay? A little bit more finicky, right? And you know, the hammer gets caught and the manual safety you gotta worry about, right? A little bit more controls you gotta worry about. Yeah, that's like driving stick versus driving automatic, okay? The Glock is definitely gonna be a lot more user-friendly. And you saw easily I was able to take this slide off the frame on a Glock. Not as easy with these more traditional guns, not as beginner-friendly to even like maintain and disassemble, right? So not as beginner-friendly. Okay, these are much more beginner-friendly. And you know, if you don't like how plain your Honda Civic came, are there obnoxious things you've seen on a Honda Civic? Yes. Can you put obnoxious things on a Glock? Yes. Yes, you can Gucci up your Glock. You can totally personalize your Glock to you, okay, folks? Because this is such a popular platform, right? The aftermarket is huge. You can find all kinds of parts and accessories for the Glock, okay? Actually, some of the accessories you find out there are gonna actually make it more useful and easier for you to manipulate, right? We all have different size hands and hand strength, okay? So there's gonna be a lot of controls you can add to this thing to make it better suited for you, okay? We'll get into that a little bit later, okay? So now I'm gonna disassemble the Glock further, okay? We'll step this aside because we're not gonna disassemble this one. This is a side-by-side comparison to show you the general differences. By the way, if you're curious about more different types of guns and you're thinking about buying a gun for your first time, it's a pretty important decision, okay? Take my pistol 102, buying first gun. We nerd out, okay? You get to shoot 12 different guns, both different striker-fired guns. By the way, Glock, they were the first, they were the pioneers of the striker-fired gun. Now every other gun maker has their version of a striker-fired gun. Okay, Glock's not the only name in town anymore. This 1911 traditional gun, hammer-fired, is made by Springfield Armory. They have their own versions of a striker-fired pistol, okay? So just know you have many options, and when you buy your first gun, you should try as many options to make your informed decision, okay? All right, so we'll set this one aside. And close up on The Glock down there is where we're going to be looking at in detail, right? The first thing I want to show you is the frame itself. Back to the frame, right? Back to the frame, okay? So the frame, here's good pistol discipline, safety discipline. Do not be the beginner that picks up a gun, oopsie, my finger's on the trigger. No, let's build good finger discipline right now, okay? Before you ever take a gun, folks, this is how you build good finger discipline. Make a gun with your hand, okay? You make a gun, and then you take a gun. And that way your finger's already disciplined straight in your frame. That's a good habit to build, right? That way you don't go straight for the trigger. That's a bad habit. You want to build good habits, make a gun, take a gun. Cool? Next beginner mistake to avoid. Do not leave any big gaps between the web of your hand and the rest of the pistol, okay? As long as there's room for play, right? Like we talked about in the first video, the 4 rules of firearm safety and how that hot shell goes towards you. That's because you got this big loose grip and you're allowing this much slack, okay? So the next thing is always make sure the web of your hand is straight up against the top of the grip as possible. Take out any room for movement. It's not even about how tightly I grip the frame, okay? As long as you take out the slack, it's like your web of your hand is the backstop. And there's no movement, okay? That's how you properly pick up a pistol, okay? Now, the next thing you need to be familiar with are these 2 levers. This lever at the top called the slide lock, and this button behind the trigger called the magazine release, okay? And because guns, the gun world is no different than the rest of the world, you know, we live in a right-hand biased world. So left-handed folks, this gun is right-hand biased, okay? This gun is not ambidextrous for left-handed folks, okay? We'll get into more about what kind of things you can consider as a left-handed person. But for right now, right-handed folks, okay? What I need to do is demonstrate for right-handed folks, okay? This is your magazine. Once it's in the pistol grip, you need to find out, okay, 2 things. We all have different size thumbs, okay? Different size thumbs, okay? You need to find out if you can move that slide lock and reach it with your right thumb easily without moving your trigger finger and floating this around near the trigger, yeah? If you find that you cannot reach the lever, the slide lock, with your thumb very easily, simple, okay? As long as we're not firing the gun, you have total freedom to move your grip around the gun. Just like when you're driving a car, you're allowed to move your hands around the steering wheel to be efficient. Yes, you can move your hands around to reach it. So look what you can do. You can scoot around, scoot around, scoot around. There, now I can reach it. If you need to scoot around to reach that slide lock, then do so, okay? That's for right-handed folks. For left-handed folks, we'll talk about this a little bit later, back when we have the pistol assembled. It'll make more sense how a left-handed person would manipulate that lever. But for right now, right-handed people, that's what you're gonna do, okay? All right, the next thing is the button behind the trigger, the magazine release. Same thing. Can you reach it with your thumb, press it straight in, and the magazine will fall out. It will be released, okay? If you can't reach it, right-handers, you have 2 options. You can, same thing, scoot around, scoot around, scoot around, and then press it in, okay? Press it straight in, okay? Here's another option, right-handers. If you don't want to scoot around, you can actually use your left thumb. Use your left thumb instead. On this hand, your left thumb is the strongest finger. You just use the left thumb instead. Press it, and it will fall out. Okay, 2 options for the right-handed folks. Okay, now for the magazine release, if you're left-handed and the gun is not ambidextrous, this is what you're gonna do. Okay, left-handed person. By the way, I am right-handed by birth, but as a trainer, I believe it's important to train as an instructor to be ambidextrous. I do operate and shoot guns left-handed to help left-handed folks. Okay, so left-handed folks, if the gun is not ambidextrous, take your index finger, your right hand, underneath the trigger guard. Reach around, right? Where your trigger finger and your middle finger, where they separate, that's right where that magazine release is exposed for you. Reach around, press it in, and it's gonna fall out, okay? Right? Left-handed folks, just reach around. Or find a gun that's ambidextrous, okay? I'll probably take out an ambidextrous gun later to show the left-handed folks. But to be honest with you, in California, we're restricted to the kind of handguns we're allowed to buy. It's a California roster-approved handguns. We're very limited in our options of handguns. There are many guns that are ambidextrous for left-handers available in other states where they're not allowed to be sold in California, which is a whole other topic we don't have time for. But left-handed folks, you should know you're limited in your choices. So you might as well learn how to operate guns that are not ambidextrous as well. You're not always going to have the option of ambidextrous controls. Okay? All right. The last thing I want to tell you about the frame is most modern handguns, unless they're very tiny or unless they're a very old design, like the traditional gun, there are rails or grooves at the front of the frame. These are called accessory rails. One of the most important accessories you might consider for your home defense gun is to put a light on it, okay? Attach a light, weapon mount light. The lighting technology for handguns is so good. They're so lightweight. They're so small, but the beam is very intense and high lumen. So remember that last rule of firearm safety, always know your target, always positively identify your target. Probably have a light on your gun to help you do that, okay? Weapon mount light. Not only are identifying your target, they are really bright. They're going to temporarily blind that person, okay? So just, yeah, it's a very good accessory for you to consider on the frame, okay? So that's your frame. That's what it does, right? It houses the magazine, which we're going to talk about next. And this is your magazine. We're going to learn about how to load these things, okay? Your magazine. So again, there's no light ammo in the class. These are orange for a reason. They are totally inert dummy rounds to help us practice in the classroom. To get familiar with the magazine, the curvy side is the front of it. The mouth where you start to feed it is at the top of the front, the curvy side. The flat side is the back of it, okay? For many magazines, the flat side, they'll often have windows to help you see how many bullets it contains, okay? If you are right-handed, you're gonna hold the magazine in your left hand with the mouth facing your right hand. You're gonna place it on a table for leverage, okay? And then you're gonna take the first bullet, the flat part of the bullet, you're gonna press it down the mouth and slide it back underneath. It's like a Pez candy dispenser, okay? Once you get that first one in, it helps to use your left thumb at the top, press that one down, and get the next one in. Just like that, okay? And then as you progressively load the magazine manually, you're gonna quickly discover it really sucks to load them manually, okay? It gets harder, okay? So this is why loading magazines really suck for you, okay? Here's a see-through magazine. There is a spring inside. The more you load, the more rounds that you load, that spring gets tighter, okay? Imagine you loading magazines manually. Think about it. We're all different. We have different abilities. Think about the folks who have arthritis. Think about the folks who have limited hand strength. Think about the folks who have long manicured nails. How could they fight the spring tension and get these loaded, right? It absolutely sucks. There is absolutely an easier way. I don't even like loading them manually, okay? Let me show you an easier way, okay? The good news is they're actually very easy to unload than load, right? So let me unload this magazine for you, right? Now, you could be really sloppy about unloading your magazine, like a Pez candy dispenser. You can just push it out and, oh my gosh, it pops out everywhere, okay? Instead of doing it like that, let's do it the more, orderly way. Just like you pushed it in with your thumb, right? Right-handed people, with your same thumb on the back flat part of the top bullet, just pull them out into your palm. There. See that? Nice and orderly. They don't go flying everywhere. It's super easy to take out. Okay? So let's do it the easy way. There are many accessories in the market to help you load these a little bit easier with less effort. They're often called easy loaders, speed loaders. The one that we use in our classes is this brand, the Uplula brand. Okay, and this is how it works. There's a part that you squeeze with your 4 fingers. Same thing if you are right-handed. By the way, left-handed folks, everything I'm doing, just reverse the hands, okay? So right-handed folks, again, use your left hand. Hold it in a way that you squeeze it with your 4 fingers. If you're left-handed, then hold it with your right hand, okay? Notice that that part that you squeeze matches or is angled upwards just like the mouth of the magazine, right? So guess what? You line them up. Part that you squeeze goes over the top of the magazine on the table for leverage again, okay? And here's how easy it works. You squeeze over the top of the magazine, you press down, load the flat part of the bullet in like last time. You go back up, let it go. Squeeze over the top, press down, insert, go back up, let it go. See that? A lot of students fall in love with this tool because it's so meditative, right? It's repetitive, right? People that like, they like doing repetitive motions like this. Yeah, this eases them, right? Much easier than doing manually, right? Squeeze over the top, press it down, load the bullet, go back up, let it go, okay? It's still gonna get harder towards the end, towards those last few, okay? So, for you folks, if it gets tougher towards the end, you can use both hands for leverage and strength, right? If you have to, you can squeeze with both hands, press down with both hands, load it, go back up and let it go. Or you can squeeze with one hand like before. There's a bar on top, put the palm of your other hand on top, right? Use that to press down. You can actually use the other hand to give you that extra oomph to get it down there. And look folks, how easy is that for me to load 10? Where manually, it would not be this easy, right? There, 10. How easy is it? A lot of gun makers like Glock, they do give you a sort of device to help you load the magazine. Those things are useless, they're trash, just throw them away, okay? Just buy one of these. Makes your life super easy. I've had lots of women who come to my classes because their husband or boyfriend always load the magazines for them and they didn't feel confident doing it on their own. Well, once we show them this, easy peasy, okay? They don't need to rely on anyone. You can load it yourself. Anyone can use this, okay? All right, now that you've loaded your magazine, let's practice inserting your magazine, right? Remember, make a gun, take a gun. There, all right? Now, 2 things could happen to you inserting your magazine, okay? Common mistake. People quickly discover that you can't shove it in backwards. It doesn't go in backwards, only goes in one way, okay? Imagine being under panic, in a hurry, you might shove it in backwards. Second mistake, people, the first time handling the gun, they're just so careful. They're afraid. Is this thing delicate? Should I just gently, delicately put it inside like this, right? Folks, these things are not delicate, okay? And sometimes if you're being super gentle or you're in a hurry or you're in a panic, this might happen. It's not fully inserted, folks. If your magazine is not fully inserted all the way in and seated fully, you can't load the gun. Even worse, it might even fall out on the ground somewhere. So let me show you how to always pick up your magazine. Those 2 things never happen to you, okay? Make a gun, take a gun. Now make a gun with your other hand. This time when you pick up your magazine, I want your index finger straight along the front side of the magazine, high enough so your tip of your index finger, you're actually touching the tip of your first bullet. This is called indexing your magazine. Using your index finger as a guide along the front of the magazine, touching the tip of the first bullet. If you always pick up your magazine like this, that's always the way it goes in, not backwards, okay? And please be assertive, okay? The guns are not fragile, okay? You need to be assertive because you're the boss of this thing. It's not the boss of you, you're the boss, be assertive, okay? Once you know that you make contact and the magazine is partially inserted, with the butt of your hand, right? Your support hand, that's your left hand for right-handers, right hand for left-handers. Slam it in with confidence, right? Be assertive. You'll hear and feel it seat and lock. It's not gonna fall out, okay? So in our classes and at home, you have your own setup. You should do that a few times to get your muscle memory, right? Make a gun, take a gun, index your magazine, insert your magazine, and take everything out, put it on the table. That's good muscle memory to build. In our classes, we actually have, once they understand that, we actually challenge the folks and we have them close their eyes. Close their eyes, look somewhere else, do it entire by touch, right? Make a gun, take a gun, index your magazine, insert with confidence, take it out, on the table just by touch. And you will quickly see how quickly somebody who's afraid of guns, but now that we're just playing with the parts can't harm you, and we nerd out, how quickly you can build your confidence and start doing this just by touch. You start to feel your way around this device, and you're like, this is awesome, this is actually kind of cool. I'm getting used to this thing, right? Why do we have students be able to do this from day one, from the first few moments of learning about these guns? It's to build your confidence. It's to build your familiarity. It's no different than your car, right? We talked about in the first video. No one's scared of driving their cars, okay? And you know, when you step on the gas or you step on the brakes, you don't stare at your foot to do that, do you? You know where your foot and the pedal is located. When you do the turn signal, you have to stare at your hand to do it. That's how confident you are with your car. If you're gonna own a gun, folks, I can't have you be unfamiliar and scared of your gun. You have to be just as confident, familiar with it. Just like when you pick up a gun. Oh my gosh, this is like an extension of me. Extension of my hand. I know how it feels in my hand. I know where everything's located. Even when I operate it, shoot it, I know how it feels. Does a car have wear and tear? Yes. You maintain your car, take it to the mechanic for periodic maintenance. Does a gun have wear and tear? Absolutely. Get to know your gun inside and out. And if you can't, you maintain it, you clean it, and then there are things beyond your ability, you take it to a gunsmith. There's no difference, right? You have to be confident, and you have to be familiar with the thing that you're owning. You can't be scared of it. Too many people buy guns because they're scared of the world around them, and they're also scared of this thing. They just throw it somewhere in their drawer, thinking that's, if the worst situation ever happens, they'll grab it, they'll instantly know what to do. You're not going to know what to do if you never properly handle and get familiar with this thing. So it's about building your confidence, okay? So we've gone over the frame, we've gone over your magazine, and how to efficiently load it, no matter your hand ability. Let's talk about the final piece. Let's talk about your slide. Why is it called a slide? Because it slides, it moves back and forth. Okay, whether you're doing it manually or whether you're firing the gun, this thing simply slides back and forth. That's why it's called a slide. If you turn it upside down, there is a recoil spring. Okay, on a Glock, it is very simple to take it out. Okay, you grab the back of it here, and look, just pull it up and out. Comes out real easy. There's nothing interesting for me to tell you about this. It's a recoil spring. That's all it is. It's a spring, mechanical spring. We'll set it aside. Once you got the recoil spring out, look, you can actually grab the barrel up and out of the slide, okay? If you actually look through the barrel, there are grooves or spirals or swirls internally through that barrel. It's like looking at James Bond through the barrel of a gun. That's exactly what it is. If you watch a James Bond movie, the opening montage, you're staring at James Bond through the barrel of a gun, okay? Those grooves inside the barrel is called rifling, okay? What the rifling does is as the bullet travels down the barrel, that rifling is putting a spin on the bullet. Why is that a good thing? It's like throwing a football. If you put a spin on the football, it's gonna go farther and more accurate. You put a spin on a bullet, it's gonna go farther and more accurate. So that is very important, the rifling, okay? The front end of the barrel is called the muzzle. This is why people say, hey, don't muzzle me. Don't point that end of the gun at me. And let's talk about muzzle discipline right now. People are a little bit too lax about how people point guns at each other, okay? Even if they're unloaded, okay? Here's the muzzle discipline. Never allow yourself to see any part of this opening. It means someone is potentially pointing a gun at you, okay? If you're my viewer that way, and I point my muzzle this way, is that an issue for you? No, because you can't see my muzzle, right? But if you're my viewer that way, and I've got a gun in my hand, and I'm not pointing directly at you, I'm gonna point it diagonally this way. If you're my viewer, and you see any part of this muzzle, say something right now, okay? This is unacceptable. Do not wait for someone to directly point a muzzle at you for you to say something. It's too late, okay? If you see a part of anyone's muzzle, the opening, if there's a 180 on my muzzle and you can see the opening, it means you're standing in front of my gun. Don't stand in front of people's guns, okay? Start to say something right here. pointing away from me. Do not wait for someone to point a gun directly at you to say something. That's proper muzzle discipline. Okay, we've seen too many amateurs, families with kids being a little bit too lax about this stuff. Okay, you cannot be lax about your muzzle discipline. You have to be strict. Never allow yourself to see any part of the opening of the muzzle. Do not be in front of people's guns. Do not be in front of the 180 plane of a muzzle. You're technically in front of a gun. Okay, that's muzzle discipline. The blocky end of the barrel is called the chamber. Okay, this is where the bullet sits waiting to be fired. I'm going to take a loose round out of the magazine and I will plop it in the chamber. There. That's where the bullet sits waiting to be fired, in your chamber. That's why when people say, hey, I chambered my gun, they're telling you they loaded their gun. Hey, I got one in the chamber, I loaded my gun. That's what they're telling you, it's ready to fire. If there is nothing in the chamber, there is nothing to fire. So guess what? Later in this video, when I teach you how to verify if a gun is unloaded, what are you visually checking for? You're visually checking to see, is the chamber empty? That's how you verify a gun's unloaded. You're looking for an empty chamber. Okay, great. Now, before I explain to you the full firing sequence, let me explain to you what this is. Now, even though we can call these bullets to be technically precise, this is called ammunition, or ammo for short. An individual piece of ammo is called a cartridge or a round. Okay, you buy a box of ammo, it's gonna say 50 cartridges. You buy a big bin of ammo, it might even say 1,000 rounds. Individual piece is a round or a cartridge, okay? Now the bullet is technically only one of 4 parts of this ammo, okay? The bullet is the tip. The bullet is the orange part. The bullet is the thing that gets shot out the barrel towards your target. That's the bullet. The shiny piece has many names. You can call it the shell, the case, the casing. Some people simply refer to it as the brass. And the case or the shell or the casing contains gunpowder. The propellant, gunpowder's inside, okay? And then the final piece, the igniter that gets the magic started, is this round circular cup at the bottom of the rim. That's called your primer, right? That's the 4 parts of ammunition. Here's how it works. You load a round in the chamber, you squeeze a trigger on a gun, and what that does is it releases a firing pin. It looks like the tip of your pen. The firing pin strikes the primer with enough force to ignite it. It's like striking a match. The spark from the primer burns the gunpowder. The gunpowder instantly becomes a hot gas. And if you remember science from school, hot gas trapped inside a tiny compartment, what does it want to do? It wants to explode, it wants to expand, it wants to get out of there. Well, think about it. The chamber is surrounding the shell on all sides this way. Your barrel is essentially a tunnel, isn't it? And there's 2 openings on each, right? There's an opening on each end of this little tunnel. So tell me, what are the only 2 directions that gas can expand and escape out of there? Well, just forwards and backwards. That's the only 2 possible directions. The gases will expand, pushing the bullet under high pressure, high velocity towards your target. Boom. And now the gases will expand backwards, moving the slide backwards. And now the very hot shell goes backwards and it gets ejected from the gun. There. That's how it works. It's a very simple combustion process. This process has not changed since the invention of guns 100 years ago. In fact, the process I just explained to you were all different, separate steps. Remember the Revolutionary War? Remember those muskets? You see them in the movies? They would pour the gunpowder down the muzzle, shove the ball ammo down super tight, cock the hammer, make sure there was a piece of flint there for the hammer to strike. They would take aim, squeeze the trigger, release the hammer, strike the flint, cause a spark, burn the gunpowder, become a hot gas. Whew. Exactly the same technology, folks. Now it's self-contained here, right? But demystifying that for you. You should understand this process, right? Same ancient technology is being used today, okay? Now, Hollywood exaggerates a lot, so let's talk about this. If I threw a handful of bullets, threw them in a fire, throw them in a campfire, bonfire, your fireplace, what do you think happens? They'll explode. Absolutely. They will cook off and they will explode. Could they potentially kill anyone? Never. Hollywood wants to make you think these might be potentially dangerous and they're just waiting to blow up in your pants, right? Blow your leg off or something. No. Ammo outside the gun, ammo is not lethally dangerous. Okay, I want to demystify this for you. We throw this in a fire, ammo will cook off. Like firecrackers, they'll blow up, right? It's like popcorn. And then the bullet will go about 1 or 2 feet. There's no velocity or energy to penetrate your body. So I want to demystify that for you. Okay, don't be unnecessarily scared of ammo. They don't really go off that easy. And even if they did go off outside the gun, there's not been a documented case of ammo killing someone outside the gun. Okay? Now don't throw in a fire. I didn't say it was safe. Okay, I just said it's not lethal. You do throw in a fire, when the shell explodes, that shrapnel from the shell is going to go in all different directions. If you're not wearing proper eye protection, yeah, might injure your eye. Just won't kill you. Okay, so I want to demystify that for you. All right, so now we got that out of the way. If you look in your slide on the face, right there, I'm pointing to the firing pin. That little nub sticking out is your firing pin. That's all it takes to hit the primer. Now this little handle back here is the back of the firing pin. If I pull it back, you're gonna hear a click if it's audible enough. Okay, here we go. You heard that click? I just retracted the firing pin inside the housing of the slide. Once I've pulled back the firing pin, I can't push it through again, right? It can't protrude or touch the primer. This is a drop safety, folks, okay? On a Glock, when you load around the chamber, that firing pin is already recessed back inside. There's no way it could touch the primer. It's a safety feature. You could drop your Glock on the ground, kick it, run it over, okay? Super unlikely for that primer to even touch the fireman to even touch the primer, okay, for the gun to go off. It's a drop safety, basically, right? The way it works is when you squeeze a trigger on a Glock, the trigger is going to press this round button right here. You could do it yourself. I'll manually press the round button, and that allows the firing back through again to be able to touch the primer. Okay, it's a very simple drop safety, okay? And then the last thing I want to tell you down here next to the firing pin is on the side next to the firing pin, it looks like a tiny little claw, That part's got the extractor. What does that do? The extractor, that little claw, holds onto the rim of the case when you have a round in the chamber. Okay, let me put it in for you so you can see. There, with friction. The extractor, the outside of it, you can see it right here. This is your extractor, okay? Holds onto the rim of the case when you have chambered a round. What's its job? Well, when you fire the gun, right, bullet goes that way, slide goes to the rear, and that extractor helps pull that very hot shell away from the chamber, and then it gets ejected through this opening. There, that's how it works, okay? This opening where the shell, right, the spent casing gets ejected, it's called the ejection port. Okay, this is the ejection port. You see them in movies, right? You operate a semi-automatic device, it's spitting out these hot shells, okay? The ejection port. If you turn your slide over and you run your thumb on the top back edge of your ejection port, you might feel some kind of little sharp nooks and crannies back here. Guess what, folks? This opening, your ejection port, is a danger area. Do not get your hands or fingers anywhere near this opening of the ejection port. It's like a mousetrap waiting to snap shut on your fingers. There's been a couple of times folks didn't listen to us, and that's when the boo-boo happens, and that's when we have to grab out a Band-Aid out of our boo-boo kit. Keep your parts of your hands and fingers away from the ejection port, aka the mousetrap. Don't let it snap shut on your fingers. Don't risk that. There are ridges back here. On most semi-automatic handguns, you will find these very well-defined ridges or serrations at the back end of your slide. That is your gun's way of saying, it's okay to grab me here. It's totally safe to grab me back here. Do not ever grab me over the opening, okay? Great. So now we're gonna reassemble our pistol. We're gonna flip our side upside down. We're gonna grab the barrel. These are called lugs. This handle-looking thing, grab it by the lugs. You are going to insert the barrel, muzzle end in first. Slide it back. And then you're gonna take your recoil spring. So the way you put the recoil spring back is like putting a battery back in. Narrow end towards the muzzle, And then with your thumb at the back of the recoil spring, the flat end, press it in and down just like a battery. Yeah, be assertive, don't be afraid of it. It's not fragile. You know it's fully seated because if you turn it sideways, it should be parallel to your slide. Okay, great. And now let's put our guns back together. Make a gun, take a gun. Remember this, make a gun, take a gun. Good finger discipline, no gaps here. Web your hand, right, as snug as possible. You're gonna grab the back of your slide away from the ejection port. See that? I'm back here. I'm not near the ejection port, the mouse trap. I'm way back here, okay? And how to easily put the Glock back, you're gonna hold you can hold them sideways, the two pieces, to see what you're doing. Putting the slide back on the frame, it's like putting the train back on the choo-choo tracks. Okay, where are my choo-choo tracks? My choo-choo tracks, my train tracks are these two metal tabs, not the plastic. Metal tabs. If you hold them sideways, there are slots at the bottom of your slide. You line up those slots at the bottom of your slide in front of the two metal tabs. Then when you line them up, your slide should easily move all the way to the back. You should be able to slide it all the way to the back. Once you get to the back, I need you to grab tight. When I say grab tight, human nature, do not do this. Do not reach forward to get a better grip because now you're over the mouse trap. Stay away from this danger area. No, grab tight at the back end of your slide. Be assertive. Okay, the key word is assertive. Pull back, let it go. The gun, this Glock, is now fully assembled. Okay, it's a fully functioning firearm. Once it's assembled, folks, right, the rules apply here. When they're just gun parts, we don't need to worry about the rules. Once it's assembled, we worry about the rules.